Module 10, Measurement and Proportion. In the initial days of learning, it is important you take careful measurement of your subject so that the relative size of different elements in a drawing are correct. With time and practice, this becomes second nature. Though, to measure and keep the proportions true to life, it is important that you take measurement. This is more important in the case of portraiture and live drawings, as the position of the model will inevitably shift during the course of the pose. However, before we move on to learning the technique, I will insist you to first attempt a drawing of a simple object visually. Let's begin with taking a simple object for our study. I have chosen a white cylindrical glass kept against a white background. Practice a few strokes on paper. So begin by practicing a lot of vertical strokes and do a quick sketch of a basic shape, visually trying to get the proportions correct. I am drawing to glass correctly using gouache. The consistency of the paint is thin, and that allows my brush to move freely. I am attempting to draw the glass in its real size, measuring through my sense of observation the proportion of the glass in terms of its width to its height. Drawing an object made of glass kept against a white background is challenging, so pick a shade of grey or blue for the exercise. In such case, the shadows are the darkest tone, the highlights remain white, whereas the rest of the area remains linear. I will draw a few more sketches of the same glass. Observe how I am capturing the light and shade on the glass surface. The shadows, highlights and middle tones are represented as negative, positive and linear respectively. You may use white paint to make stronger highlights. The studying of a comparatively simpler shape like that of a cylindrical glass will help your mind get attuned to measuring proportions visually. I further add strong highlights in using white paint on the side or bottom. You may use several values between black and white to finish a work of this color scheme. So make a lot of such sketches before progressing to mechanical measurement. I will move on the shading another sketch drawn first. Walk away and view our drawing from a distance to check if you could manage to get the proportions right. I demonstrated two ways of shading the same glass. Always use good paper for such work. If the paper is too thin or of bad quality, it may wrinkle or blot while using layers of poster color. Now let's attempt drawing the same glass by using pencil. I am stressing upon drawing the subject in various mediums as it will develop a very strong ability to observe and capture things through the eyes. It will remove the chance of you using the technique of mechanical measurement as a crutch. Rather, the method of mechanical measurement then becomes a tool that you may or may not depending on the nature of the subject. I will check the proportions of the glass that I have drawn using the technique of a measuring unit. By doing that I will know if what I have measured through my eyes is correct or not. With years of practice, I can measure things visually. This takes time and you are bound to reach at this level with dedicated practice. My glass is in correct proportion as expected. I will continue to work on shading the glass and come back to taking about the technique later. In the case of dry mediums like charcoal, pencil or dry pastel, I use an eraser to create highlights by rubbing off the medium from areas to reveal the white sheet of paper. The white color of the paper working as highlights in this case. Be careful to use the eraser at an angle or in a way that it creates strokes then appearing as just rubbed off areas. For the middle tones, I picked a piece of cloth to smudge the pencil to create grays. Before picking the eraser again to erase the middle portion and the areas near the rim of the glass, where the strongest highlights often tend to fall while drawing a utensil made of glass. I further lift some more pencil dust from the bottom and then adding a dark line at the bottom, the area that has the darkest shadows. Smudge the edges of the glass with the cloth to create soft contours. I will add the shadow falling on the cloth on the left side of the glass. Adding soft vertical light strokes on the bottom will emphasize on the texture of the glass. Look for such textures and then decide the use of what kind of strokes will best justify the texture. I will pick the eraser again and rub the sides to give the glass a definitive shape. As you must have noticed by now that to shade such an object, one must use the medium, eraser and cloth simultaneously, as and when required. There can't be any rigid instructions for the same, as decisions to achieve the desired result are more spontaneous than a line of step by step rules. As a final touch, I will add a few oblique strokes to the side of the glass so it appears as a transparent object touching the side of the glass with light and definitive lines. Erase the extra marks from the side and rub off the edges with cloth to appear softer. Finally, erase the highlights, making the areas appear white and clean. Make a light clean line to define the rim. Remember to keep the pressure of the pencil soft. You may continue to work on the details using the pencil, erasing the light areas and softening the edges of the shadow and highlights, either cloth or your fingers. The face can be measured similarly. Decide to use any feature as a unit. It could be anything, the width of the eye or the length of the nose. Keeping that as your measuring unit, you can now measure the rest of the face accordingly. The purpose of teaching the techniques of mechanical measurement through a cylindrical glass was to keep the explanation of the technique simpler. Let's move on to now measuring the glass mechanically. To check if we got the proportions right, while you measure, keep your pencil marks light so it is easy to make adjustments and corrections if need be. Choose a unit within your subject against which you can measure everything else. This becomes your base unit. The rest of the elements within the subject will be proportioned to your base unit. Close one eye, holding your pencil straight up against the subject. Make sure your arm is absolutely straight and steady during the measurement. The distance between the subject and your arm remains the same at all times of measuring any element. Keep the ratio. The distance between the subject and your arm remains the same. Align the top of the pencil with one end of the section and move your thumb up and down the shaft of the pencil until it is in level with the other of the distance being measured. If the object is small and you are using a stick or rope as a measuring tool, if the object is small and you are using a stick or rope as a measuring tool, then you can go near your object and measure it from close. For instance, in the case of this drinking glass, I can go up to the object and measure. But in case the object is very large, you will sit far and with a steady hand create a measuring unit by half closed eye view. The way I am doing it with the glass right now. I will measure the glass and get a ratio of length and breadth that turns out of 1:2. It actually is a little less than 2. I have considered the breadth of the glass or the rim of the glass from one end to another as any measuring unit, as my measuring unit. The same applies to portrait. As I have mentioned before in earlier lessons, that to check the overall proportion of your oval shape of the head, the simplest measuring tool is the length of the hand. From the tip of the forehead to the tip of the chin is the same length as your head. I will draw the basic proportion of head, which can be divided into 4 parts. From the tip of the head to the hairline, the tip of the hairline to the eyebrow center, the length of the nose, and end of the nose to the tip of the chin. I am drawing the basic oval shape of the head, dividing it into 2 equal parts horizontally and vertically. I choose to keep the nose as the measuring unit and check the width of the eye and eyebrows. the distance from the eyebrow center to the beginning of the ear. Anything can be measured by the measuring unit. This way you will get the proportion of every facial feature in a comparison to each other. You may decide any facial features, width or length as your unit, whichever you feel is the most useful according to the angle and eye level you are viewing your model from. I will measure the length of the lips, keeping the measuring unit as the nose. An interesting fact is that the distance between the two eyes is as wide as the length of one eye itself. So there are these general guidelines to measure the human face. Yet, I repeat that you hone your skills of observation and use all these guidelines as helping tools.